I want to take time this week to focus on a very important message on our rights, but to do this I need to give you background. Following this message, I will include a couple of subscriber Emmy stories. I really ask that you listen to the full video, as this information affects all of us and the future of, well, everything. If you do not wish to hear more, I thank you for listening this far. You can jump ahead anytime you want to go straight to the personal stories. Just visit this time mark. Otherwise, I'll get started. Bear with me, as this will mostly be spoken word. The stories at the end will contain my usual video style, but to save time and get this message out there, it will be spoken word. I understand mass media in a way that the majority of the population do not. The first thing I published was at 5 years old. I began writing for school newspapers and sending things to local newspapers when I was in 7th grade. My first film class on documentary making was in 6th grade. I competed in and won many awards throughout high school nationally as a teen journalist covering topics like AIDS biographies in the mid-90s. I worked as a section editor starting in 7th grade. My first one-act play was produced by the Portland Repertory Theater when I was 17. I paid my way through and won scholarships for university by working as a section editor throughout college. I interned throughout college as a broadcast audio intern, broadcast newsroom intern, and broadcast promo advertising intern. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Broadcast Journalism and Communications from the University of Oregon, with 3 associate degrees. I worked as a news producer with my own midday newscast at KMTR, an NBC affiliate. I worked as a promotions producer at KZI, an ABC affiliate, and the largest in Eugene, Oregon at that time. I was in the newsroom during Columbine. I was in the news business when our station converted from analog to digital, and half the studio lost their jobs to computer programs and automatic camera systems. I was in the newsroom when Photoshop came out, when computer printers and fax machines switched from dot matrix printers to inkjet. I was the hostess for a weekly entertainment program known as Super Atomic TV. I've been on air, and I've worked about half of the positions available behind scenes, in print, broadcast, and live productions. I've worked in news and entertainment. I know about mass media. I went into the media with visions of things like Watergate exposures in my head. I wanted to make a difference in a world that wasn't showcasing gender rights, native rights, health issues, and kindness in the news. And I worked my ass off to do it, working 3 jobs to pay for school and expenses out of pocket. There was never a free ride for me. But the world doesn't always work the way it should. I started university wanting to be an anchor, but was told by the J School's head administrator, who was large in the industry and originally worked with Wolfman Jack, that I was odd-looking and would turn people off if I was on air. He told me specifically I looked like a vampire or something with my black hair and light skin, my natural coloring, and it crushed me. I started working behind the scenes and eventually became a TV producer in charge of writing the show's rundowns, almost all of the scripts that you see the anchors reading from, and editing together all the video footage as well. But stories that weren't important, i.e. gay rights, women's health epidemics, tribal land use, began being removed by my male anchors, who said they did not feel like these stories were important to spend time on. Word for word quote. Being a very young female in charge of many older men, I was not supported by the newsroom director, who went along with their requests. Every day my show was butchered by people who were working under me. They would pick and choose stories, including those that ran smoothly together. And when they didn't have the footage they needed, they would go out and film fake video in the parking lot out back. They once had me drive in circles on my cell phone so they could write a story about how many people drive with their cell phones, which wasn't really very many at the time, given they just came out and we were still using beepers. Here's how mass media really works. There is an overseer of all stories called the Associated Press. It is an organization with its own writers who produce content to be used by every media outlet in the nation. They sometimes take local stories from affiliated stations, all stations are affiliated, to share and run local news. They put out the video footage you see as well. A producer will go through national and local news, putting together a rundown, a list of stories that will be covered in a broadcast or newspaper. There are basic rules to creating what they expect in a rundown. Generally, the stories are best if they run smoothly together. For example, you have 3 shooting stories and 1 big story on environment. You have 3 spots to fill. The environmental story will almost always be removed, as it does not smoothly segue into the next story. Suddenly, there's a shooting epidemic happening everywhere. Your rundown is supposed to end with something fluffy, to send viewers out on a positive note so they'll return again. These stories are not to have any controversy to them. Think fuzzy kitten rescued from tree. I once ended a newscast with a story that I felt was quite sweet. 2 gay teens had been photographed in a school yearbook as a couple. Parents were outraged, so all the teens got together and they started a peaceful protest that they called a kiss-in, where all the kids sat outside the school on the grass as couples despite their sexuality. I have never been chewed out as hard as I was at the end of that show. After a year and a half, I couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't fixing the problem, I was helping to create content for the problem. And unless you play their game exactly, you will never get close to being able to come into a position where you're actually able to make changes. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sell my soul. I returned to school and became a cosmetologist, working specifically with cancer patients going through chemotherapy. I became a specialist in the field and on the West Coast. I finally felt like I was doing something important. In 2005, I auditioned for a local TV show as an on-air hostess. I got the part. I wanted to give TV another go. I was fired a year and a half later for being pregnant. They told me they were keeping me and that they'd film from my head up. 3 weeks later, they recast the position behind my back. I was sick during that time. My mom was very sick with terminal cancer, and I didn't have the strength to fight it. This is the truth about mass media. This is honestly and truly the way mass media works. Until the internet, YouTube opened the doors in 2005. It gave a voice to the journalists and content creators that never had one. And the truth community became strong, and the real information that affects you and me had an outlet, and we were free. I do not make money from my videos. I do not monetize anything, and I began this channel to spread information on the things that I feel are important. I've known since the start that if I monetize any of my videos, I lose the opportunity to speak freely about the things I need to. Once you add money to an equation, it's intense change. There are more voices saying what is or what is not acceptable, as we have seen with the recent removal of big advertising pulling itself away from the site because it didn't approve of content. And you know what YouTube has done to fight this? To make our real voices heard? They've started sending out emails saying that if they approve of your content, they'll help point you out. And if they don't, well, they'll just ban or block your video. Can we be physically targeted? My last video was automatically set to private at upload last Sunday. To change it, I had to manually reset the settings to public 3 different times. This comes after spending a week talking to other MeTubers online and striking back against the YouTube by demonetizing videos. I have a kitty. This kitty is my pride and joy, and he's always with me. He sat by the door and said goodbye to us as we drove off to school this morning. At 1 p.m. today, after receiving that email from YouTube and talking online openly about the quantum changes and YouTube's intent to make less desirable info impossible to find, I returned home to find my cat missing. There are 4 of us, 2 kids, 2 adults. Half our house was at school. We 2 adults looked for him everywhere. At 2 p.m. we finally found him. He was inside a steamer trunk, inside our closet, with a heap of things sitting on top of the lid. Everything was in place where it usually was. We have no idea how he got in there. We had been home all day, and if we hadn't found him, he most definitely would have died. It was by chance I even lifted that lid when I heard the faintest weak little mew. My husband and I were very shook. Kitty is safe now, but the experience was oddly timed, and it shook me quite a bit. This cat is very special to me and is definitely my weakness. We have 3 cats. That it was this one was oddly specific. I have never felt like a targeted individual, and I don't know if I believe many targeted individuals' stories, but this experience shook me enough that I almost did not put up this video. So here's how we fight back. And with all that background, here's the true message of my video. We need to fight back. This is not about fighting them for money. This is about fighting them for our voices. YouTube is systematically ending content they don't approve of. Project Owl by Google, who also owns YouTube, of course, is linking us to a big old AI supercomputer D-Wave, who will begin going through Google now, searching for unacceptable terms and taking sites and info they do not agree with off of their search engines. They can't keep us from saying it, but they can definitely keep you from finding it. And that's the plan in action right now. Most of us are not rich people. We understand the elite have means to things that we do not financially. Most of us are not lawyers. We do not know law. Most of us work hard and are stressed every day and don't have time or energy to fight the establishment. But we can do something. We can really kick them where it hurts, and it's fast and it's free. Money is always the answer and question. YouTube exists primarily on advertising dollars, content that they place on our videos. And every time you click that monetize button, it monetizes YouTube too. So don't press it. Don't monetize your videos. Don't monetize them. Take away their money. That they will understand. I know there are people who make their living on YouTube. I have friends who do. But start thinking about alternatives, because we will need these alternatives down the line anyway, once they've silenced our voices. Stop their income. Strike. Be a YouTube union. Don't let the internet pick and choose. Do not let a computer pick and choose what you should be privy to. The benefit of this computer age is that we can all be heard. We can interact with each other. And if we can't do that, only the bad aspects of the internet will remain. Stand up for all of our voices. Demonetize your videos. Story 1, JW. So I was just listening to a personal story video on your YouTube channel, and I didn't even finish because I got to story 5 on the video and I had to stop and email you. I have been experiencing the body changes, and I don't think it's finished yet. Let me explain. I've had really bad tonsils my whole life, constantly inflamed and infected, and I've had constant stones in them for years. Suddenly, they're gone. I had a surgery scheduled and everything for last November. I canceled it after years of causing me problems. They got better overnight. I noticed all of a sudden that I could drink. I used to get hammered after 2 drinks, but suddenly I can binge, not eat anything, no water, and get up early with no consequences. I also used to struggle with addiction. I've gotten no help, and I don't mind being totally sober at all of a sudden. I've had no counseling, it just happened, all of this, in the last few months. Pounds have been falling off of me with no explanation. I can fit back into pants that I should have thrown away 7 years ago. I haven't started working out. I haven't changed my diet. I'm not sick. I feel great, actually. Again, just over the past few months. I've always had adult acne, and it cleared up 90%. I haven't changed anything. I had a scar on my eyelid that I've had my whole life, and suddenly, I can't find it. It was big, it was thick, and it's gone. I have so much more energy. I'm off one of my antidepressants with no problem. All of these things have been over the same few months. J. Story 2, W. My experience starts when I heard about the effect. Back in 2012, I was struggling with everything and everyone I know, so I tried to take my own life. I survived, and ever since then, I've been living like in an alternative universe. Fast forward to now, I'm married. My mother was never okay with my sexuality. When I told her I would be eloping, she was completely happy. This struck me as weird due to her religious views. I'm also not religious myself, which she is now aware of and doesn't mind. I think that day in September 2012, when I took my life, I did die. I think maybe I was transported here. I feel like a different person, like I'm living in a totally different life. Another example, my grandma passed away in 2014. I didn't mourn or feel sad, but she and I had always been very close. I mention this now because somehow I have the feeling now that she's okay in some other reality, or still alive. May I also add that after my hospitalization, my liver was found to have absolutely no damage and was completely healthy. The nurse said that she was astonished because of the amount of pills I took, and the time span between making it to the hospital should have severely damaged my liver. Sincerely, W. When we rise up and let our voices be heard in unison, we become a force to be reckoned with. We show them we are not scared to fight for our voices, and that none of us are alone.